Good morning, everyone. My name is Patrick Costigan. I'm here at HUD headquarters this morning, and we're gathered today with folks that have joined us in person to talk about new flexibilities in the rental assistance demonstration, specifically changes that we have made in the just issued last week notice for the rental assistance demonstration, or RAD. Our purpose today is really to offer a number of ways for you to explore some of the nuances and things that might be tucked away in those 232 pages of the RAD notice. I believe that's the red line pagination number. But there are many things that we did include in the changes to the notice that we want to have an opportunity to talk about today. So, first on our agenda shortly, Secretary Donovan will be arriving, and he'll talk with us about some of his observations about where we are with RAD 1 year in and what we're trying to do as we go forward, and perhaps what the future of RAD looks like from his vantage point. And then after that, we will have an opportunity to break into a couple of panels here featured on the webcast today. The first panel will be led by Greg Byrne, and he will introduce a number of our partners in this, some directors of public housing authorities. We also will have another panel that will include a lender and investor, as well as housing authorities. So we'll have an opportunity with our RAD leadership team really to explore some of those nuances in the changes of the notice through a couple of panels. Greg will be first. Lavy will lead a second panel shortly after the first panel is wrapped up. Each of those panels will last roughly, Greg, I think 15, 20, 25 minutes. Then after that, we will have an opportunity for both the participants here in HUD's Mondale Auditorium to break out into discussion groups, where we'll have more of an opportunity around listed topics to talk about some of the changes in the RAD notice. Those of you that are participating via the webcast this morning will have an opportunity via a call-in number to join in those discussions. So we actually have reserved some separate rooms here in the building where there's a fairly decent phone, and you should be able to hear what we're talking about, and there is call-in information on today's agenda. Now, one of the things to point out, I've been asked to make sure that those of you who are participating via webcast are aware, is that today's agenda is on our RAD webpage, and if you have any questions about that or the call-in numbers for the different breakout sessions, that's all on the agenda and the details, and that's on our RAD webpage, and that is easily found at www.hud.gov/RAD. So again, those of you by webcast, if you have questions about what panel might I want to join, how do I do that, where's the phone number, that's all on the webpage, and I won't go through that now. But if there are questions about that, we do have people that will pay attention to the email, and we'll try to address any questions or confusion that may be out there about that. So, again, we're very pleased that you could join us today. The rest of the session that we have scheduled will really only logistically work for folks that are here in person today. We'll have a lunch break, and then we all have an opportunity to sit down and have, we're thinking of it as just office hours. We'll be breaking out in the cafeteria area in small groups, and folks that want to sit down and talk about any particular question or issue related to your deal, something that you're wondering about in the notice, whatever, we're happy to do that. That will unfortunately not be accessible to those of you that are tuned in now by webcast, but we do pledge that we will have further webcasts or call-in sessions, and I think that we're always happy to take your questions as soon as we can get to them. If you just send us a note to rad@hud.gov. It's as simple as that. That logs a question in, and we get it to the appropriate staff. Oftentimes rad@hud.gov has been Will Lavy, but he's been getting a little bit busy lately, so some of us are trying to help out with that task. So that's basically the day's events from our perspective of the things that we're trying to do, and through the course of the day, we're very happy and interested to get your thoughts and ideas on what we might do as we go forward, and having a chance to go through and make sure that everyone understands the notice. So that's today. So where are we in RAD? Before the Secretary comes, let me just kind of take a minute to recap. Oh, and I see that the Secretary's here, so I'm not going to fill that space. We'll let him take it away. I don't think that there's really any need in this audience or really any audience that deals with HUD to introduce the Secretary. I'll just make one comment about the Secretary and his involvement in RAD. A few weeks ago when we were planning out today's session, someone said, "Oh, Pat, you probably should be sure to tell the Secretary that we're going to have a webcast and that we're going to have folks into the Mondale Auditorium. We're going to have breakout sessions." I said, yeah, I'll be sure and do that. And I'm thinking to myself, I think that the Secretary will probably be a little more interested than just being told that we're going to be doing this. And sure enough, after working with him a few years, I sort of figured out that he actually did want to come and talk with us today. So Secretary Donovan, can you please join us? Thank you.
Good morning to all of you. I was hiding back there. I thought your remarks were wonderful, Pat. I caught them all. And I do want to start by saying thank you to every one of you for joining us today to talk about the changes to the RAD notice. And I particularly appreciate, as I look around the audience, I know many of you have come from some distance to be here today, and I know that across the country we have folks joining us by webcast. And so this is really about accomplishing two things. First, we want to make sure that you understand and that we communicate as clearly as possible what we're trying to do in advancing RAD. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we learn from you what's working, what's not. And the goal is very simple. We want RAD to be an effective tool in helping you continue to be the critical, community-based affordable housing owners, managers, and developers that you are in responding to the needs of your residents and your communities. You know, and this is the reason that I'm here today, I see, and all of us at HUD see RAD as a critical part of the Obama administration's broader comprehensive strategy to preserve public and affordable housing well into the future. We hope that it works not only to recapitalize the nation's stock of affordable rental housing, but that it promotes efficiencies within and across HUD's programs, and most importantly, helps to build strong, stable communities of opportunity. You joined us today because you're the early adopters of RAD. And I want to, again, say thank you for that. Thank you for being leaders in your communities. And we all recognize we have a lot of work to do in fully achieving the goals, the shared goals that we set out for RAD. But you are the early adopters. You're the leaders in this first part, which is the no additional cost demonstration. This is a vitally important first step, particularly in the very tough budget environment that we have. By talking to your boards and residents, meeting with lenders, investors, and developers, and sharing your vision for repositioning some of the nation's most important affordable housing assets, as our early adopters, we truly believe that you're the vanguard of a new and, frankly, more politically viable way of funding public housing for generations to come. Again, thank you for that leadership. You're pushing us to do more, you're pulling us along in some cases, and your ability to execute on a vision that is now unfolding as the new leading edge of practice for public housing. Now, we're well aware that the initial RAD notice constrained some of your ambitions. Frankly, for statutory reasons, and to be sure that we were making RAD accessible to as many housing authorities and owners as possible, the initial 30-day competitive application period was oriented to single or a small number of housing properties per housing authority. Generally, we satisfied what we wanted to accomplish, and we got important feedback from that application period that lets us now take RAD to the next level. Most importantly, we got proof of concept from RAD's early adopters. Since opening RAD application periods last summer, HUD has approved or given initial approval to nearly 20,000 units of public and assisted housing in 180 different projects around the country. Through these awards, you've proposed to generate $816 million in private debt and equity investments to reduce the capital backlog in public housing properties, which will preserve or replace distressed units, and to support local jobs in your communities, all without any additional operating subsidies from the federal taxpayer. I think a really remarkable achievement. So we know that RAD can generate additional capital for public and assisted housing. But here's what you also showed us in the early returns on RAD. RAD seems to work for PHAs of various sizes, but mostly medium and small PHAs have participated so far, something I think that surprised a lot of folks. Of the 78 PHAs that have been awarded so far, 35% are small or have 250 units or less. 50% are medium-sized PHAs, and 12% are large. You're interested in converting assistance to both the project-based voucher and the project-based rental assistance platforms in almost equal numbers. 49% of projects are converting to PBRA and 51% to PBV. Interestingly, if we look at the breakdown by number of units, 53% converting to PBRA, 47% to PBV. You're proposing to use a range of financing sources. 39% of projects are planning to use 4% tax credits, 24% plan to leverage 9% tax credits, while 37% are using a debt-only model. All of this leads us to believe that RAD is helping to go in an absolutely positive direction. But perhaps what's most exciting about what we've seen in the first phase of RAD is the range of accomplishments, the local objectives, what you want to get done for your communities, a broad range of things that are being accomplished. Substantial rehab that enables significant energy improvements, replacing severely distressed units through new construction, making aging in place improvement for the elderly, and working with your local school districts to ensure that where the transfer of assistance is necessary, the new site where we're moving assistance helps provide greater opportunities for existing residents and families. All of those have been accomplished and more under this first phase. I would also say that while today's focus is on the first component of RAD, that is for public housing as the main focus, let's not forget that the second component of RAD also affords private owners of certain types of expiring assisted housing, what I sometimes call the orphan programs here at HUD, an option to convert to new long-term contracts to preserve and recapitalize this valued form of housing. To date, in extending such assistance, HUD has preserved over 5,000 units of privately owned assisted housing and expects to preserve an additional 2,000 units by the end of the fiscal year from owners that have submitted conversion requests. We're also maintaining a queue of additional properties to preserve if additional authority becomes available, since this component of the demonstration ends with the closing of this fiscal year. So all of these early results, these initial results from RAD, are incredibly promising. A big reason for this is your willingness to roll up your sleeves alongside our team. And I hope you've seen that we've tried to work collaboratively with you in developing RAD so far. We remain absolutely committed, today is just another example of that, to working together to build on RAD's success and take it to the next level. In the revised notice, we've done our best to be responsive to the feedback you've given us. And in fact, the changes in the revised RAD notice are very much building on that spirit of collaboration that we've built through this whole process. We believe the changes will expand the flexibilities for both applicants and new applicants and current participants. Our agenda today will go into considerable detail, as Pat said, on the changes with panels and breakout sessions that I look forward to joining a little bit later this morning, and with these RAD office hours in the afternoon. But let me highlight some of what I think are the most important changes that we announced last week. which might be a helpful crib sheet to the RAD notice. Think of it as the Cliff Notes, if you will, given that it is 230 pages. Pat did a masterful job of getting through the Paperwork Reduction Act requirements at OMB. Still keeping with the no-cost limitation of the demonstration, these changes offer PHAs expanded flexibilities in planning for rehabilitation and acquiring financing for conversions from public housing assistance to the project-based Section 8 platform. The changes also extend opportunities and flexibilities to mod rehab owners. So I encourage the preservation purchasers amongst you to pay close attention to the mod rehab section of the notice. First, one of the things we heard most clearly from you, especially in response to sequestration, was the need to be able to know and define your rents in order to do the rest of the work in putting together a RAD application. You also asked for some flexibility with the no-cost parameters to the RAD statute. Back in March, we announced that we would allow housing authorities to lock in RAD contract rents at fiscal year 2012 levels for all applications submitted prior to the end of calendar year 2013. This serves to establish predictable rent levels for both PHAs and for financing partners, and is now codified in the notice. We're also allowing PHAs to bundle or adjust current allocations of capital and operating funds in setting initial contract rents across multiple projects. So you're not locked into what those current capital operating funds are directed to that single project. This will meet the needs of a project and facilitate financing, instead of requiring that you set RADs relative to the capital and operating fund allocations for the specific project, as I just said. We're also allowing PHAs to augment their RAD contract rents by converting future replacement housing factor funding into RAD rent levels, while retaining the ability to deploy RHFF into the financing structure if that works better for you. Finally, we're allowing moving to work agencies who are applying for 2 or more projects to use their MTW block grant flexibility in setting initial contract rents within RAD PBV or PBRA rent caps, so long as you effectively demonstrate that you maintain your MTW service level agreements. We think each of these adjustments should allow for that balance of predictability and flexibility that you and your partners need in order to put together the strongest proposals possible within the funding constraints we're all living within. We're also hoping it will enable some creative financial structuring in your RAD transactions. Now, a second thing that we heard from you all over the past several months is that you need more time and opportunities to plan for converting larger projects and rational groupings of projects as a means to strategically reposition your public housing inventory. With that in mind, we're now eliminating the 1,000-unit cap on units that can be awarded to a given PHA or mod rehab owner. This also means we're opening the ongoing application period to mod rehab owners under the first component. We're also providing awards for public housing or mod rehab projects requiring multi-phase developments to facilitate financing by allowing PHAs and mod rehab owners to receive portfolio awards for a set of projects, provided the PHA submits individual applications for at least half of the projects at the time of the request and applications for all projects within a year. And we're also allowing PHAs to use the Choice Neighborhoods Implementation Notice of Funding Availability to apply for a joint RAD and Choice Neighborhoods award. We hope that these changes, with these changes that your community and larger portfolio needs and not HUD rules guide your strategic planning efforts. You also told us that we needed to allow for a better way for mixed finance projects to be able to use and capitalize on the opportunities presented through RAD. So we're first eliminating the cap on units that can be awarded to mixed finance projects. We're allowing financially stressed HOPE 6 projects to convert to RAD regardless of how long the project has been in service. And we think these changes will help you stabilize complex financial transactions with a predictable Section 8 subsidy stream underpinning them going forward. Finally, you asked us to eliminate some of the small barriers that may not have prevented you from applying, but are making it difficult to meet other goals administratively as you progress through your conversion to Section 8. So in response to that, We're now exempting awarded projects from the FAS, the Public Housing Assessment System, to support redevelopment planning and temporary relocation during construction. And we're giving PHAs additional flexibility in expending public housing funds they're using to fill gaps in deals. We hope that these changes will make conversion easier and more flexible for your needs. As I said earlier today, the rest of today's agenda will be devoted to delving into the nuances and possibilities of these changes for housing authorities and all of your partners that are here today and across the country. With these changes, the announcement back in March about being able to set project rents at 2012 levels, and the various conversations our team has been having with many of you, we're now looking at a database of expected applications for this year to be well north of RAD's current cap of 60,000 units. Our best predictions, which are indicated on the charts on the screen you're seeing right now, suggest that housing authorities and their partners are working on applications in excess of 70,000 units, and that's beyond the 15,000 units that we've already given initial approval to for housing authorities. While we requested the ability to raise the cap along with some other flexibilities for RAD in our 2014 fiscal year budget request, the status of which Pat's going to speak about a little bit later today, right now we are constrained by this 60,000 unit cap. After that, we'll have to start a waiting list, and we will not have the ability to lock in rent levels or make forward commitments of authority without an approved RAD application. Unfortunately, even with our best efforts in an uncertain budget environment, the only certainty that we have right now is the remaining authority under the RAD cap that currently exists in law. So I want to emphasize today, the best thing that you can do is get your applications in as soon as possible to take advantage of these new flexibilities that we're talking about today within RAD. I want to also emphasize that the more demand we have, the more we show the interest in using RAD, the more we will get your help in demonstrating on Capitol Hill that we need this added authority, that we need to be able to expand RAD and go to the next level. So while we anticipate that we do need to go beyond those 60,000 units very soon for the cost-neutral conversions, we also know that the current funding approach to RAD will not work in every market across the country. We know how important it is to continue to push not just for the expansion on the unit cap, but for other statutory changes to RAD, and we plan to do just that. Now, I'm sure most of you have seen in our 2014 budget request that we've asked for initial funding for RAD, and we were encouraged by how the Senate responded in their recent markup. We're also optimistic about working with the House Financial Services Committee and appropriators who are original supporters of the ideas within RAD and getting changes that we need from them. I also want to point more broadly to the importance of Section 8 reform. Not only does the longer-term authorization for RAD rest within the Section 8 reform proposals that are being considered by the authorizing committees on both sides of Congress, but it would also provide for many flexibilities that you all have been asking for years, frankly, that allow you to do more with less in these tough budget times and to be the best possible stewards of affordable housing in your communities. We are working very, very closely. In fact, I was up with the House Financial Services Committee yesterday talking about this. We are working every day, both with the House and the Senate, in crafting a Section 8 reform bill that can be taken up and passed in this session. And I want to emphasize that. We've become very close in past years. We need to push this across the finish line this year, and we need your help in doing that. And we are going to be calling on all of you early and often to be able to help us get this across the finish line. Finally, I want to say there's another matter that is of great importance that is being taken up by the Senate Appropriations Committee this week, which is to increase the appropriation for our Choice Neighborhoods initiative to $250 million, a substantial increase, more than doubling. This funding is a critical linchpin in supporting President Obama's call to create neighborhoods of opportunity in the administration's Promise Zones initiative. As you remember from the President's State of the Union, he eloquently talked about the fact that we have too many neighborhoods in this country where a child's life chances, even a child's lifespan, is determined by the zip code that they grow up in. That is not acceptable in the United States of America, and we need to keep pushing for all of these Section 8 reforms and to get Promise Zones done this year in appropriations. We need your help, we need your support, and we can get it done. Finally, I want to say, on behalf of the entire RAD team at HUD, again, to come back to thanking you and, in fact, congratulating you for stepping up as leaders in making RAD a valuable new tool in preserving and redeveloping our nation's public and affordable housing. You are the path breakers in your communities and across our country. Millions of residents who need decent, safe, affordable housing depend on you. And this promising new tool, if we can take it to the next level with the notice, with the work that we're doing, if we can get expanded authority in the appropriations process this year, there are millions of residents who stand to benefit across this country. They, even if they will never know your names, if they're not here today, they salute you, and I salute you on behalf of them today for the work that you are doing. Thank you for that leadership. Thank you for what you've already accomplished, and thank you for the accomplishments that are ahead of us if we keep going in partnership. I want to now turn it over to Greg Byrne. And I just want to say here, both to Greg and to Pat, as well as to the entire team here at HUD that's been working on this, one of the things that has been so satisfying to me as we've worked through this process on RAD is I keep hearing across the country that the way that HUD has partnered with you has been remarkable. And one of the things when I came into this agency that I knew, having been HUD's biggest customer in New York, is that we needed to be more of a partner. We needed to figure out ways to get to yes, to work to be flexible, to be innovative. And I will say, Pat, Greg, the entire team that's worked on RAD, in my mind, has been just absolutely outstanding in terms of bringing that spirit. These changes in the notices really do come from you, and it's a sign of the fact that they are working with you every day and listening, and I think really doing remarkable work. So, Pat, Greg, thank you for your leadership. Thank you for everything that you've done. Ladies and gentlemen, Greg Byrne.
Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. So keeping with the theme of today, which is really what are the new flexibilities, this is not a RAD 101 and going through all the notice changes, but what are the things that have allowed housing authorities under this notice to sort of expand the program, that this panel right now is about inventory, public housing inventories, not just a single project, but over the past 6 or 9 months, housing authorities have come up to us and said, but I'm interested in doing many projects. And some of the rules under the existing notice made it difficult for me to sort of go in a big way. So what are some of the things that we did? We decided to lift the cap of 1,000 units. We decided to lift the cap on mixed finance projects. We provided more flexibility for Hope 6 projects. There's more flexibility for multi-phase projects. And we also created this new thing called a portfolio award, which the Secretary mentioned, where a housing authority can define its own portfolio, whether it's for the entire agency or a subset, and as long as they give us applications for half of that portfolio, we'll reserve RAD authority for the remaining units and give you another 365 days to come in and put in your application for those. So those are some of the big picture things that we've done to sort of address this notion of inventory sort of approach to RAD. And so our panel today, we've got 3 larger agencies. We've got Thomas Coleman from the Tennessee Regional Valley Housing Authority with us today in northern Mississippi, Paul Graziano from the Housing Authority of Baltimore City, and James Cox from the Greensboro Housing Authority. Thomas with about 1,200 units, Paul with about 15,000, and James with about 2,600 units. And what we want to do is sort of hear from them what this notice now provides in terms of new possibilities and how they're approaching RAD with it. So I'm going to put my first question to Thomas. And so Thomas, we know that in sort of the early sort of stage of RAD that your agency had expressed some interest, but then you sat out in the first round. But now you've had sort of been back in touch with us and say, hey, there's some things about these the notice that now make it possible or increase the interest for my agency. So what's changed?
Well, the change is the bundling and the cap removal. But let me go back, and we're an agency of 1,250 units located in northeast Mississippi, a regional housing authority.
Well, because maybe the mic. They have to press the mic on? Is it on? There you go.
Is it on?
Now it's on.
Okay,
Yes, thanks.
I'm
Thanks,
sorry.
Thomas.
I'm sorry. We're an agency in northeast Mississippi, a regional housing authority, 1,250 units, and we were divided up into 10 amps back in 2006 as a result of asset management. We were interested, especially when we heard that we were going to be able to use the FMRs as our basis for the rent calculation. But of course, as you know, that changed, and the figures got tighter after the 12 appropriations, I believe. So we prepared two applications for two of our amps about a year ago, and then we decided not to submit those applications because of pushback from the staff, because we were going to be operating two authorities with one set of rules and 8 with another. So there was a pushback, and so when I heard about the cap being removed, which would allow us to apply for the entire 1,200 units plus the bundling, because we had at least 2 of our amps that would not work financially, but probably will work with the bundling. So at this point, we are in the process of preparing the application. It appears that the numbers will work with the bundling, and we're just happy that the HUD has seen fit to at least change those 2 items that will affect the Tennessee Valley Regional Housing Authority.
Thanks, Thomas. And so you'll go in for the whole kit and caboodle, right? Your whole agency.
Yes.
And
along with a agency that we manage, a small authority
so
that
both,
we manage.
you'll put in applications for both agencies.
Yes, so that everything we'll be doing will be either project-based vouchers or project-based rental assistance.
Great. Paul, I'll turn to you. So probably you're not coming in for all 14 or 15,000 units.
No,
right? That's a big thing to swallow. But our notice provides some additional flexibilities, and so how are you approaching this with a really extra large housing authority?
Well, sir, yes, let me turn that on. Good morning. We are definitely not going in for the entire inventory, but it's not merely because of the size. It is, we've done an analysis and we've sort of categorized our inventory by different groupings, and we think that some of the types of housing that we have are much more conducive to this program right now than others. Over time, there may be others that could be in a position to move into RAD as well. But for instance, we have 46 amps total. Our mixed population buildings, we have 15 amps, 3,100 units right there. We think that as a group, those developments would be ideal for RAD. And so right off the top, we're looking at those as one package, and obviously they may be broken up into
Yep.
development groups, but I should say we've got an RFQ out on the street right now for developers, inviting them to come in. The proposals are due the end of this month. We're going to really fast track we've done a lot of internal analysis. We want to get the developers to give us their sense, but we believe that the mixed pops are a very, very good starting point. So again, that's about 3,100 of our units. We also have some Hope 6 sites that are feeling some financial distress with the reduced prorated public housing operating subsidy. And so there's some technical questions we have there. We know that most of these Hope 6s are with tax credit deals, with tax credit compliance periods and so forth. So part of what we want to learn today is how do we kind of sort out those issues? How do we move forward with a RAD without upsetting some of the compliance rules and obligations that go with a tax credit deal? And obviously you've got to make all those investors happy, although I would say parenthetically that I would assume that they'd be interested in a deal with a more stable
Right.
rent subsidy. So we have close to 1,000 units in the Hope 6, just the ACC units, in 5 deals. So that's another group that we want to look at very closely. We've got 6 smaller mixed finance deals with 167 units. Some of those owners have come to us asking for the same reasons of financial stress and the uncertainty about the subsidy levels. We have a large site that we're currently redeveloping. It was formerly 900 units of public housing. We've demolished 2/3 of the site. We're rebuilding in phases. Right now our thinking is to do that without RAD, but we're kind of intrigued by the idea of maybe whether there could be an overlay there. There was some technical issues related to a consent decree which have now been addressed, so we might look at that site. It would definitely be a multi-phase site. We also have a couple of sites that we're looking at for choice neighborhoods, really not this year because there's another project in the city we're working on which is not public housing, but next year. And so I don't know that, I think we're sort of separating the choice neighborhood process from RAD right now. But we have to go through a planning exercise with at least one of these major family sites. So it's possible down the road we look at that, but I need to really have us delve into more the benefits of piggybacking RAD on choice neighborhood. So we're not opposed to the idea, but right now we think it's a separate piece. And then overall, on the conventional family sites, we are, the challenge there, they tend to be larger sites. There's some small family sites that we think would fall into RAD very, very nicely. The problem with the very large sites for us, and you have given us relief in terms of the multi-phase development and so forth and the flexibility, but we're also challenged with some broader planning issues of we want to convert these to, as many as possible, to mixed income communities. And we have, obviously there's a 1-for-1 replacement there, which we're certainly supportive of. We're not in a position in our market right now where increased density is a high selling point for most of those sites. So the real question is, how do you work a large family site into the joint objectives of recapitalization and a steady stream of revenue, while at the same time creating mixed income opportunities. So I would say we're going to take a very close look at those. We'll probably handpick a few out of there, put them in our initial bundle, but there are going to be some others we want to look at down the road. So I guess the point I'm making overall is that because our inventory is so wide and because there are other considerations, we are categorizing and prioritizing, and there are some that are just sort of very obvious, and we've actually done analysis of all our sites, and we have everything from a $47 million surplus on a RAD deal to a $102 million gap. The $102 million gap would be the one we're looking at choice neighborhood. But So there's a huge range here, but we have, even if you take out the very, very large project, we have about 5,000 units that would indicate a surplus, a very positive cash flow right off the top.
Great.
And so when you start looking at all those other issues, we think that can grow over time. So I think what's really important is that we get into this thing as big as we can in a way that we can, responsibly do it over the next couple of years. I like the 50%, the portfolio, 50% this year, 50% next. But I'm obviously concerned, as I know you are, about having a program we can count on down the road so as we expand that RAD inventory.
Right. So Paul, just to follow up before I go to James.
Yes. So
as you laid out, there's 3, 4, 5,000 that right now pencil out pretty well.
Yes,
that
very
you
well.
might put, and so it looks like you probably will take advantage of our portfolio award provision, which you'd say, I'll go in for these first grouping of properties, but I may also be asking for HUD to reserve awards for another set of properties that I still need a year to really plan for.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that's going to come out of the discussions we had with the developers. We had a pre-development meeting yesterday, and we had a large number of very experienced developers come in. So we want to do the reality check with them as well, and what's the capacity.
Okay.
We're assuming 4% tax credits with bonds and so forth. So we're not trying to compete in the 9% pool here.
Great. James, so you're kind of in between in terms of the size of agency and whatnot, 2,600 units in Greensboro, and you've got some unique challenges there. So how is these sort of new inventory sort of options we have available? What's happening in your agency?
There's a number of things happening. We are currently step back to really take a look at the RAD program and really go past one threshold, whether RAD or no RAD. Do that initial analysis as a baseline threshold. And then we've taken advantage of programs before, capital fund financing, energy, performance-based contracting, and so forth. And they have presented, some challenges or additional thresholds that we must move past. And so we've systematically looked RAD, no RAD, and then now first addressing the capital fund financing threshold. And with that, it presented, some challenges that we're going to have to really look at a timing issue as far as analyzing the portfolio, looking at the amount of debt that's capital fund financing, and see now with some of the restrictions of that program, which right now is based upon we can only use capital funds to actually pay it down that debt. We're currently looking to see how we can allocate resources to balance out the dollars that we would have to set aside to pay down that debt. So that has presented some barriers in which we are systematically working through. One of the things about the new changes for us is that after going through that initial threshold, we're starting to really look globally to see if the deal would actually work across the entire portfolio, and to address internally some of our physical needs, to see which properties need the most work, and to actually run through a global analysis to see if it's really a no-go or no-go from a portfolio. Because as he mentioned, some deals, some of the assets have a surplus in cash at the end of the day, and some, are sort of in the red. So with maybe the bundling of rents and those types of things and packaging through the new notice has really helped us as far as the flexibility that we see as far as the initial analysis. And then moving from the global approach then to the individual deals, and then analyzing those to see if some of those deals will require multiple phases because of the size of the deals. We have one project in particular that we initially, out of the entire portfolio, we'd really considered RAD wasn't the right fit for it. But now with the multiple phase changes to the notice, it's something we're going to drop back and really take a look at to see if it will actually work. And so we're currently in the process of moving from global now, about starting to get into individual analysis, but really have to deal with the threshold with the capital fund financing. I know, spoke with other agencies in the country, and they're dealing with some of the same issues.
Right.
And that's one of the things, hopefully, as a part of the dialogue and this discussion today, we can really come to a common ground and see if we can approach collectively.
Yeah, I just want to put a plug in or advertisement for our breakout sessions later today. That one of the breakout sections is about sort of complex transactions, and as part of that is any PHAs who have capital fund financing program loans that they're trying to restructure. Then Vicki Longos from our Office of General Counsel will be there, so anyone who has those issues, please come to that session. Paul?
Yeah, I wanted to touch on the capital fund loan issue. We're in a consortium with the state of Maryland. They had asked us to join a statewide consortium many years ago, and so they're actually going to be, there was a lockout period, but they can prepay as of July 1, so they're going to be refinancing the entire package. We are the biggest part of that package. I think we have about $50 million left on our loan. And so we're looking immediately to prepay we'll be refinanced, but we'll pay down $10 million of that. But there'll also be, and this is very important to us with RAD, there's going to be, where the old one had a lockout period, this is going to have prepayment authorization throughout.
Great.
So as we do RAD deals, we'll look to some kind of pro rata reduction and payoff of those portions of the debt associated with, on a pro rata basis.
Yeah, I just also want to say that all the CFP lenders so far have been terrific to work with. They've really stepped up to the table.
There's one other thing I want to say about that. There was a provision, which I think is a HUD provision, that says not only was there a coverage ratio issue, but there was also a minimum number of units issue, and we in the ACC, and we think that HUD needs to really look at that piece. Obviously understand underwriting and coverage ratios and so forth, but we think that that's sort of an unnecessary restriction. So like if we're converting units to RAD, we're going to obviously reduce the number of ACC units, and there is an absolute cap or minimum there. So that needs to be addressed.
From our side, any of those regulatory or provisions, we're happy to waive. It's more if it's in the loan documents and if the lender decides.
Well, we'll be refinancing anyway, so it could be structured.
James, come back to you for a moment. Just a couple more questions for this panel. Looks like you might take advantage of both the sort of the portfolio sort of provision as well as multi. You've got a couple family sites sort of near the downtown that are going to take several years to build out. So does the new multi-phase sort of award provision sort of work for you?
It would. It really would. In particular for dealing with relocation issues and dealing with some of the sites which would tend to be with a choice neighborhood or other resources, comprehensively look at it because of the density in those sites, but with a phased approach we could actually work through systematically those particular sites that have given us some issues as far as from a planning perspective. And it's important as we move forward that we're really delving into the actual analysis to see which deals we can actually package for rents, and looking and trying to work with lenders at some point to see as far as leveraging out the rents and see if some of the deals can actually be packaged under one mortgage and that type of thing. So it's a number of things that we're looking at that we have to consider, but again some of the threshold issues we have to work through. And I appreciate your comment as far as HUD, as far as regulations, because really it's coming down to a timing thing, especially if we're going to have to pay down, which we will have to pay down some of the capital fund financing, some of that debt, and looking at monies that we have now that need to be obligated by a certain period within this calendar year, and looking at different allocations and recap and management fees and those types of things that generate the cash to actually pay down the debt. So it's important to have that flexibility moving forward as we work through that particular threshold issue.
Thomas, I'm going to come back to you for the last question, and that is, you might be the first large agency to, if you apply, to really convert everything. And it could be as soon as 9 months or 12 months from now, you would be out of the public housing program, right? You wouldn't have it. So
you know, listening to these two gentlemen, I'm not envious of their situation as far as problems, because our big problem will be whether or not the PCA will come in the money. But yeah, we want, if we convert, we want to convert everything so that we get out of the public housing business completely. We get away from as many of the regulations that we're permitted to get away from and go under, say, the project-based rental assistance, multifamily. So we'll be with the private sector, so to speak, as far as our source of funds. And yeah, that's looks good to us.
And what did you do to convince your board? I mean, were they nervous that you were abandoning your mission of being a good steward for these properties?
Well, we're not abandoning our mission of we exist because of our residents, and I'm looking at this conversion as a means of continuing to be able to offer services, offer affordable housing to our residents and the future residents. But no, the board did not have an issue when you start talking about using the 12 appropriations, using the capital and operating subsidy frozen at 12 versus looking at 11 plus down the road. Who knows what it will be down the road? So that's a primary consideration, and also the ease of managing, an easier management situation for the authority down in the future.
Thanks. We'll close up. Paul or James, anything else you want to add, Paul?
Yeah, I just wanted to, well, first of all, I agree with the basic assessment of it's not a loss of public housing units. It is the choice between losing the units altogether. We have an $800 million capital need, and after we pay off our annual debt service on the capital fund loan, we get about $6 million a year. So it's a necessity for preservation, and that's something we have to push. But we haven't talked a whole lot about MTW here, and I just want to put in a plug there. I think that as an MTW agency, I think the multi-phasing, the portfolio concept, the bundling, put all those together with the flexibilities you're now offering under MTW, both we can look at additional capital infusions up front, or to help supplement on establishing rents, obviously within the limits. But putting all that together made it much, much more attractive to us, and I would hope to other MTW agencies as well.
James, anything last to add?
And I was going to say, even with us, and likewise with Tom, is that we realize that we are in the housing business, and at the end of the day, we provide quality housing, and this is a tool for us. We're constantly looking at different tools that will allow us to provide the best housing possible. And we look at this as such. I mean, basically shifting to a private business model is what we're doing, and we have to be viable long term. And so when you scan the horizon and look at various programs and what we're currently working with and potential options, this seems to be a viable option and is worthy of our analysis and going through to see if it's feasible for us as an agency, and making the fundamental shift in a potential large portion of your portfolio going to that particular model. And so we have to work through those logistics, and we have to work with our board. And again, we're still in the analysis phase and evaluating if it makes sense, like I mentioned, and it's important. But we look at it as a viable option, a tool for us to move forward to have sustained quality housing in the future.
Thanks, James. Thomas, last?
Our assessment indicates that we will not need to borrow any money, but the fear that I have going back to the board is with a PCA that says we are going to have to borrow money, and I don't know how my board will react to that, to borrowing money.
But at least you've got some room in your NOI, right?
Yeah.
If you need to borrow, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Thomas, Paul, James, thanks so much for being here today and sharing your thoughts with us. And I'm going to turn it over now to my companion, Will Lavy, to run the next panel. Will? Thank you.
Okay, the line shift is completed. So this panel is going to focus on the changes in the RAD notice related to how we set the initial Section 8 contract rents for RAD converted properties. I'm happy to introduce our esteemed panel. First we have Ashley Lommers Johnson, who's come all the way from the West Coast, from Washington State. He's with Everett Housing Authority. Scott Hoekman with Enterprise Community Investments, and Mack Carter with White Plains Housing Authority from New York. So before I turn to the panel for some discussion, I just want to review the changes that the Secretary went over. We'll just go a couple slides further. First, the basics. I always like to repeat this because this is absolutely fundamental of how we set the initial rents. For every project, because RAD does not have a dedicated appropriation, we are relying on existing public housing subsidy. And so for every project, we added what they're getting in the operating fund, what they get in the capital fund, and what they collect in tenant rents to create the RAD contract rent. And we did this for every single public housing property in 2012 when we were beginning the demonstration. And we posted this on 2 places, the RAD inventory assessment tool, and loaded it into the RAD application. Very importantly, when we were calculating the operating fund, we added the operating fund allocation adjustment back in. So it's essentially a 95% proration level. Okay, so that's where we started. That's where the applicants came in with. However, then 2013 came, and it turned out the appropriation bill was going to be a continuing resolution, and on top of that, a sequester. And that caused some trouble. That would have reduced contract rents across the country, 2 slides down, please, by about 12%. And folks were getting very worried. What would this mean? What would this mean for the applications that were currently being processed? What would this mean for folks considering RAD in the future? And so, as the Secretary described, we made the decision to continue to honor the 2012 rents, not only for any of the applications that we had already received, but for all applications we receive by the end of this calendar year. So it is there's a strong incentive for folks considering RAD to be moving with their applications in this calendar year. So the other changes, which I'll just review quickly, there's rent bundling, which the Secretary described. So we calculated the rents for every project. But really, at the end of the day, what we're charged with is not imposing new costs on the federal government. So while the inventory assessment tool tells you what each development's contract rents would be, if those rents need to be changed because it makes sense for one property to have a higher rent and another property can also be preserved at a lower rent, then we're happy as long as it's not costing us anymore. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. As Paul Graziano mentioned, we allowed MTW agencies to use voucher funds to have some more flexibility in how they set the initial contract rents. And so if their contract rent, according to our calculation, was $800, but what they really needed was $900, they could do so with their own money, as long as the rents don't exceed market, and we would still subject them to a subsidy layering review. Then finally, the last change related to rents was around replacement housing factor funds. And again, the Secretary touched on this, just a way of collateralizing what you would have gotten in replacement housing factor funds into your rent. And I really like this case because this was a small housing authority that came to us that had 4 years of replacement housing factor funds coming to it for a project that it took down a few years ago. And it was converting all 3 of its public housing sites. And says, these sites, I want to convert them all. The margin's a little tight, but I'm in. But I'm also due to get this replacement housing factor funds. Is there any way I can keep this? And we thought about it, and we came up with this idea. And so the lesson there is keep your ideas coming. They get incorporated into the program. They keep our jobs interesting, and of course, most importantly, they help to preserve affordable housing. So with that, I want to turn to our panelists. So I want to start, Mack, with you. Mack, you are one of the first applications we received for the rental assistance demonstration. You'll be in the history books very soon. Could you first just give us an overview of why you're interested in RAD and the proposed plans for your site?
Well, White Plains Housing Authority have three sites. We're a mid-size housing authority. We have 712 units of public housing. We have applied in the past for Hope 6, denied. We've applied for Choice Neighborhoods, denied. We had no Section 8, so it was very difficult for us to get some of the other grant programs. We're very thankful to President Obama for the ARA funds and for the competitive funds. We utilize those funds that we received. We did receive those awards, and we used it to be able to upgrade and rehab several of our buildings. Again, I said we have 3 sites. The sites that we upgraded was our preferred senior building, which we call Lakeview Apartments. It has 95 units of public housing, families, but we have 50% of the residents who are under lease are seniors. Our objective, because we know we're a graying country, that we have greater needs for our seniors. So we decided that we want to use that site, have the RAD award be directed to that site to improve the amenities of that building. We originally used, again, the ARA funds, the competitive funds. We used those funds to improve the infrastructure. We created a new kitchen, new community room. We created a facility for nurses and doctors in that facility. We created a recreation room, a property management office, so that we could begin to show and market that facility with the rest of the community. So after doing that, there's no money left. We realized when we saw the RAD notice that this would be probably for us the only game in town. So we applied for it, we were awarded, and we've been moving ahead with the program, and it's been running very, very well, utilizing 4% tax credits. Obviously, we have not closed as of yet, but we continue to go through the process. But that was our impetus for that one particular site. We have site number 2. It's a family facility, 167 units of public housing, and we're going to rehab that building. Both of those buildings are about 40 years old, and we have constant problems, at least from the infrastructure and capital needs. So the monies that we're going to use will be, again, to rehab, upgrade those facilities, and we want to create an environment that's competitive to our neighbors within the community. In the first facility back at Lakeview, we also created a concierge service. We have 24 hours, not security, 24 hours concierge, basically to help to assist the residents on a 24-hour-a-day basis. And we want to create that same environment for the other facility.
So Mack, when the 2013 appropriations bill was passed and it was a continuing resolution, the sequester passed, did that make you a little bit nervous about the
Not a little bit, very nervous.
And were you thinking of pulling out at that point, or you're just continuing to work with HUD to figure out how to make it work? Or
Not at all. Both our city of White Plains, our mayor, our common council, my board of commissioners, we're firmly behind preserving public housing in our city. And given the sequester, we felt that we still had an opportunity to upgrade our buildings for the preservation of within our city.
You must have been pretty relieved to learn that we would continue to honor the 2012 rents.
Absolutely. Again, our decisions were not just political or administrative. Our decisions were in partnership with our residents. We've had pre-meetings, preliminary meetings before the board made its final decision. We've had ongoing meetings with our consultant, with our residents. We've told them everything that we plan to do in both of those sites, and they have supported it 1,000%.
Great. That's great. Okay, I'll turn to Scott for a second, and before I do so, so Scott Hoekman, of course, is from Enterprise Community Investments, which is a tax credit syndicator and a mortgage lender. But I also just want to take a moment to recognize the 60 or more investors and lenders. Ian, can we decrease the font a little smaller? Okay. That are already participating in this program and helping to generate the capital to make the improvements to this project. So thank you, and now I'll turn back to Scott. Scott, what has been Enterprise's involvement in RAD so far?
Well, we have a number of projects in our pipeline for financing, both for mortgage financing as well as for tax credit syndication that are RAD deals. They're at various stages. I think that for those of you who are on the Housing Authority side, you know that we heard it on the first panel, that there's a process here of bringing developers into the process, in familiarizing themselves with this program and how it would work and how they can help you get it done. And then there's another process of particularly if you're going to use low-income housing tax credits in your RAD conversion, of bringing the tax credit investment into the deal, into the project. And I would say that there's we're sort of midstream at this point in terms of bringing the low-income housing tax credit investment community kind of up to speed on what this is, how it works. Many of the tax credit investors and syndicators have been quite involved over the years with Hope 6 and mixed finance projects, so they're familiar with development projects that involve partnering with housing authorities and with joint ventures among housing authorities and nonprofit and for-profit developers. They're familiar with public housing units. They're familiar with mixed income. They're familiar with redevelopment of public housing sites. And so but now there's a learning curve in terms of, well, what does it mean now that we're saying we're either going to convert existing public housing under RAD or perhaps propose mixed finance projects under RAD, so that project units that would have been subsidized with Section 9 are now going to be Section 8. And I think that HUD has done a good job of explaining to all of us throughout the community why this is important, why it makes sense, and why it's a better way to go long term to make these conversions. But there's a process of then bringing along the investment community to understand that and to understand their risks, and just generally the tax credit investors are very nervous about subsidy. We get, I'll speak on behalf of Enterprise, we get criticized when we take out a fund to investors that has a lot of projects with project-based subsidy in it. That's the world that housing authorities and others live in. All your projects have that subsidy, but investors generally, they're skeptical of, because they're worried about what will happen if it goes away, if the money's not appropriated. They look at the Budget Control Act, it's 10 years of cuts, there have been cuts, what's that all going to mean? And even if we argue up and down that Section 8's going to be stable, it's going to be there, they're worried about it. And so bringing them along is part of that process. And quite frankly, I think that many of us have done a good job of convincing investors that the conversion makes sense. So then what happens if we use up the 60,000 units and we don't get the additional authority? Now we've basically said, ACC Section 9 kind of bad deal, Section 8 good deal. Oh, well, we're out of the authority to do these conversions to Section 8, so now you'll start to see projects with Section 9 again. So it's like, which is it? And that's one of the challenges that I could potentially see going forward.
So when you and your team are looking at RAD deals and underwriting, given our rent setting policies, what's your comfort level, especially as you've already started to point out, compared to looking at a public housing project that's using mixed finance?
Right. The RAD demonstration has this current funding level, right? And we've all struggled with making deals feasible, particularly as debt deals, because those Section 8 rents are not high enough to support a lot of debt. For the tax credit investors, that's actually, and for selling it to them, that's a good thing, because what investors focus on a lot is what we call subsidy overhang. So how much is the Section 8 rent above market or above tax credit max rents? Well, you really don't have as much of a problem with that with these level funding, because the Section 8 rents aren't that high. So that actually, as someone who's trying to sell these projects to tax credit investors, I'd say keep this current funding level the way it is. I know that's not what anybody wants to hear in terms of trying to make the projects feasible with debt only. But to the extent that we're trying to make them tax credit deals, that does work out, because you don't have to then structure as large of transition reserves to anticipate what would happen if the Section 8 went away and you had to convert. As in terms of Section 8 of RAD conversion versus Section 9 ACC subsidy, I think the argument is very strong in favor of doing these projects as RAD, because for several reasons. First of all, in a lot of the Hope 6 or mixed finance projects that we've seen in recent years, the ACC funding level to that mixed finance tax credit project is such that those public housing units are projected to operate at less than break even. And so that's not very sustainable, whereas converting those to RAD units results in a better funding level. Secondly, the way a regulatory and operating agreement is structured, and that's the contract by which the Section 9 subsidy flows into the tax credit partnership. I think that we've seen that makes it the structure of that contract, that agreement, makes it quite easy for a housing authority to pass on its cuts to the mixed finance project, whereas a Section 8 contract, both for the housing authority and for the project, I think, and HUD has sent all the right signals on it. That's a contract, and you can kind of take it to the bank, if you will. So for all those reasons, it's a 20-year contract. HUD has to renew. The owner has to accept the renewal. I think that ultimately, if we can hopefully make this the way these projects are financed, and not kind of bounce back and forth, I think that this will be a more secure and stable and bankable subsidy platform for tax credit investors as well as for the lending community.
Thank you, Scott. Ashley, turning to you again, thanks for coming all the way from Washington State. I know you're a little bit newer to RAD. We've only started talking for probably the past month about your housing authority. What got you initially interested in the RAD program?
Well, we have just over 600 public housing units. We have a high-rise that has significant needs and just not the income to be able to address the capital needs of that building. So RAD is a good option for us to look into. So we did begin to analyze the feasibility of our high-rise. It's a 150-unit high-rise under RAD, and while it penciled out in terms of a tax credit deal, it didn't raise enough capital for us to be able to address all the physical needs. We haven't done a formal analysis, but we think it's probably around $40,000 per unit, and then pursued additional option provided by the bundling of rents that is currently available.
And so you're thinking of taking that site and bundling it, combining it with another one of your sites in your portfolio?
What we would really like to bundle is bundle our rent for that with Baltimore's rent. So
you guys should talk. Yeah.
So we for the high rise, the per unit per month rent is $519, which doesn't get us a lot. So we have another site, a family site of about 150 units with a higher rent level, and so that option increases our ability to, by bundling rents, increases our ability to leverage debt. So that we can invest more in the high-rise. The needs of the family site, the other site is not as high. So the bundling of rents does increase our ability to address the physical needs of the high-rise. But we're pursuing a third option right now because we would still come short, we think, under the bundling of rents option.
Okay. And I understand that the deal has evolved a little bit further, that you actually want to take the two sites and do one possible transaction with it.
Right. So the bundling of rents idea kind of morphed into a third option, which was to combine the two sites under one tax credit deal without bundling of rents. That would significantly increase our ability to leverage debt, in addition to the tax credit equity that we can raise. And so while the one site, the needs per unit may be about $15,000, the other site is around $40,000, this would allow us, in fact, to be able to invest a whole lot more in the one site than the other site, but address the long-term physical needs and viability of both sites at the same time.
That's great. So you're preserving two sites.
Two sites,
When initially
yeah.
you came in thinking about one site, now you're able to put both sites together to address the capital needs and stabilize both moving forward.
And offering this as under one tax credit deal, just increases the deal from a $20 million deal to a $40 million deal. So it also makes it more attractive to tax credit investors,
Terrific.
as well as private lenders.
Terrific. Thank you. So I think we're running out of time. If anyone on the panel has any final comments, otherwise, is there any?
Well, I'd just like to say I think most of us who are providers in public housing really appreciate the flexibility that the Secretary and HUD has given us in order to find the means to upgrade our facilities. And like I say, it's currently the only game in town, and not just the only game in town, but one of the means by which we could preserve public housing. And I think that's really important. That's part of our mission, and we applaud and appreciate HUD for doing that.
Great. Okay, thank you to our panel.
Let me add our thanks again, and now's the time for us to apologize to those of you who have figured out our link to the webcast. We realized early on that there was some misinformation about how to access the link this morning. I think we've caught people up. But we will make sure we'll send out information. It is webcast. We will archive it. We will put it up. We'll make it accessible so that you'll be able to hear everything that you may have missed. So we'll spread that word. It's my understanding for those of you that are participating in the webcast, please check your email. We've sent out correct information, and that information will offer you the information about the breakout sessions that we talked about briefly at the top. I'm not going to go through and offer the call-in numbers and the codes for everybody, but that information is now in your emails, and you should be able to find that, and then if you pick one of the breakout sessions that you'd like to participate in, just follow the call-in information and be able to hook up by phone. So again, we apologize for that. I realize this apology isn't going to everyone that deserves it. We'll work on that, but thank you for your forbearance. So now what we'll do is we will, as those of you here in Mondale heard earlier this morning, we will break out into sessions, and I believe your information that we pass out to you has the actual breakout session room numbers. For those of you who have never wandered above the first floor at HUD, it's a bit of a labyrinth. So we recommend that when you get off the elevator, sort of study the signs a little bit, but you'll find the room numbers eventually. Look for some of our HUD RAD staff, and we'll be happy to direct you to them. But I'll just quickly point out again on this agenda that most of you have a hard copy on. The breakout rooms are as follows. We will be talking about the conversation that we really pretty much just had about rent setting. It won't be exclusive to just our panelists here today, but we hope and expect they're going to be able to join in that. And we'll focus on, so what do we mean by the changes in rent setting, the CY13, the bundling, the multi-phase, et cetera. So that conversation will be principally focused on that. It will go in many directions, and that's fine. But if you want to talk about rent setting and some of the specifics, that will be in room 4202, fourth floor. Look each way, follow the signs. If you want to talk about portfolio conversions, large multi-phase projects, really what Greg's panel was all about, and again, his panelists, those of them that are still able to join in will join. Other partners in the room will join. Greg will be holding forth, as other RAD staff will, and we'll be talking more in detail about how the portfolio awards and the larger project conversions can work. We also have, beyond the two panels which we had here, we have a third breakout session that sort of covers the rest of it, other changes in the notice. We know that there's a fair amount of interest in the changes to mixed finance and Hope 6. Mod Rehab in particular, we think is a great opportunity in the changes that we've made. And that will be in room 5202. And I'm sorry, I didn't say back to Greg's panel, his room will be 7202. We also, in the other changes session, Mixed Finance, Hope 6, Mod Rehab, we'll talk about some of the issues that you've really been struggling with. CFFP, EPC, how do we accommodate CFFP obligations? How do we sort of continue to pursue EPC? Those are important objectives. We've been working on that with you. We'll have folks in the room that really have been, right up to the moment, active in those kind of conversations. So that will be in room 5202. So again, quickly, rent setting, room 4202, portfolio conversions, large projects, room 7202, and everything else, but more towards some of the complexities of RAD, if you will, room 5202. So those sessions, you'll have RAD staff there. We'll kind of talk through sort of how that'll work, but it's really a session for you and a conversation for and with you, and we appreciate you doing that. So let's proceed to the rooms, and then lunch on your own. Those of you that want to come back after lunch, again, we have office hours. We're going to meet outside of this room, right in the cafeteria area there after lunch, and we'll sort of break out into groups from there. So, again, thank you.